All right, this is so dumb. I had this idea of trying to show you how big and mad this Nissan Cubic was inside. That involved me, see where my feet are over here? I'm like laying down. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods. We're working on the Nissan Cube. See this supercharger button over here? That supercharger doesn't work. Outside of the car, completely. Inside, now kind of clean. Look at this. So this episode, we're throwing it up on the hoist. Isaac, my mate, is here. He's Captain Supercharger. We're pulling it apart. We're going to make it work. We're doing some body stuff. We're doing painting. It's going to be big. Hang with us. Let's go. I picked up this super rare special edition 7-seat Nissan Cube for just $6,000 off Marketplace, and it's been supercharged by famed Japanese tuning house Impul. It was cheap, but I'm starting to see why. The exterior condition is terrible, and the supercharger doesn't work at all. So today we're going to be pulling it apart to see what's wrong with it, and also trying to fix as much of the body as possible. The big problem though is that it appears that the engine has been just as neglected as the rest of the car, which means there's way more work in this than I'd anticipated. So unsurprisingly, Isaac, this looks like every abused engine that you and I have ever worked on.
Why is that?
Because I buy the cheapest shit available.
This is pretty bad though. How hard is it? Just do an oil change, eh? Like, that's what I don't understand.
Well, it saves all of this later, except I think the rationale is I'm not going to own it later anyway, so I don't care.
No,
do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I think most people are thinking.
I think so. But have you ever sold a car that's in worse condition than when you bought it? I don't think so, right?
Well, no, that's not the idea of the game. The idea of the game is to make it better.
It looks terrible.
Pretty bad.
It looks terrible.
It does look terrible.
You know what it reminds me of?
What does it remind you of, Isaac?
That other Toyota engine we pulled apart that nobody had ever serviced. The R34.
But we're stuck with it. We're not pulling this out.
No.
But can you hear Marty's voice in your head? What's he saying right now? What are his exact words?
K-swap it.
1, 2, 3. K-swap it. Yeah. And how long will it take?
1 day.
It'll just take 1 day.
1 day build.
And then what's the next thing he'll say?
Haltech.
That'll fix everything.
Yeah.
Pull it out in the bin, K-swap it, put a Haltech in it, and that'll just fix everything.
Yeah.
Ain't no one got time for that. Well, let's just make it better than we found it.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Or set it on fire. A huge amount of engine damage can be avoided with regular oil changes. It is the easiest, cheapest way of keeping your engine running the way that it should. We use Castrol Edge in all of our cars, and we believe in it so much that we stuck our heads on the bottle, and they are a sponsor of the show. The supercharger is proving to be super difficult to remove, and the lack of access means Isaac needs to modify some tools to get in behind it, which makes us think maybe it was installed with the engine out of the car. And while he's doing that, I'm removing what's left of the Impulse Special Edition rear bar. This is not something I can replace, so it needs to be saved. So this here is the Impulse rear bumper, which is basically Bluetooth. Look at that, it's almost Wi-Fi. If you are gonna run your car with this much damage, the least you can do is drill a hole through here, because that will potentially stop that crack going further because you get a nice ring. But there is damage here, damage here, damage here, damage there. It looks like what's happened is that this side has been bolted onto the car and then that end has fallen, which would explain that. And then it looks like someone didn't learn their lesson and did the same thing on that side again. You can just, when you're installing bumpers like this, far out, put it on a vacuum if you need to. Put it on a stool, put it on something, but this is one person trying to bolt something on. They haven't even used tech screws. So these screws is, I mean, that's just a screw from somewhere else in the car. So I've just got to make a decision of whether I fully embrace the JDM and kind of zip tie it, or whether I try and repair it. Obviously this is not a body shop. I'm not an expert at this stuff. So I don't know. Maybe I got to call someone in. I think I'm going to ring a friend. Getting access to this supercharger is an actual nightmare. It's only a couple of bolts, but so far we have been working on it for hours. The access for working on this car is straight up terrible, and nothing is as easy as it should be.
Oh man, that took ages. just slaving away. Every little bolt that holds this thing on is really hard to get to. I reckon I've cut down more Allen keys, cut down more spanners, just to like undo little quarter threads at a time. And then now I think it might be time to actually take the blower off. But the crazy thing about this, someone put this on the car, and I reckon they did it with the engine out. But even with the engine out, it was probably really hard as well. Anyway, it was all leaking, gaskets all blown, so no wonder it wasn't doing anything. Anyway, I'm gonna have a crack at just ripping this off the car. That is an air pump. Look at this thing.
Visually, the supercharger appears to be intact, and it runs its own independent oiling system, so the first thing to do is empty it and check the oil. Except it's already empty. Another case of being completely baffled by this strange car. The supercharger system is going to be disassembled on the bench and then rebuilt using whatever parts we can source locally. But if we can't find parts locally that actually fit this, then we'll have to use these factory parts and give them a proper service and repair and then reinstall. So we've blown apart this supercharger here on the bench and learned firsthand why mechanics hate Nissan Cubes. They hate them. And in fact, Isaac rang a mate of yours, and what did he say when Nissan Cubes come into his shop? Because he's a real mechanic. What is his thing?
He said if a Nissan Cube walks into the shop, you either don't take it on, you walk away, or you quote the out of it.
Yeah. Basically, you don't want to do the job.
Yeah.
It seems pretty evident now that this was probably installed when the engine was out of the car, I reckon.
Yeah.
But then would someone have taken a whole engine out just to put that in there? We don't know. These are mysteries. This is what we do know. Come and have a look at this. This is the supercharger system. This is a Roots style, not the screw style. It looks like this, and there's a TVS style.
That's correct.
Also, which is slightly different.
Yes.
This is the oldest, most inefficient technology, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Tell me what you know about this shit.
So basically, Wankel, who also designed the rotary engine, they came up with this idea of a lightweight twin rotor system that essentially would just move X amount of air through an engine, through agricultural equipment. It was just an efficient way to move air, in some cases fluid as well. They actually sold this design in 1973 to Ogura, which is what this is. It's an Ogura blower. And from then, they've been used in automotive things, a lot of agricultural, some pumps, water pumps. They're basically just a device that can move air or fluid through something at a known rate.
Yeah.
And in case of this engine, it's 700 cc's per rev, which means that essentially this thing has to run maybe twice that in order to make the capacity of this
bar?
engine. Well,
1 atmosphere?
Well, 1 atmosphere in absolute pressure is kind of what we're living in. To make additional pressure on top of that, it needs to make that 1 bar plus more. So that's why we basically under and overdrive these systems in order to get the amount of air that this is moving related to what the engine's consuming in a relationship that creates a positive pressure situation, which is resistance through an engine.
Everybody, Isaac. I've said it before, he's one of the eminent experts in this field in the country, and he builds guitars, and he's a musician. First and foremost a musician, would you say, or second most?
Maybe second most.
Second most? What do you do first most? That other thing you're...
Oh, that yeah.
One?
Maybe that's equal first.
Anyway, so what I find interesting about that is that Wankel has a rotary.
Correct.
Wankel has a supercharger, and they never went...
No.
Beam me up.
No, but they did sell out.
They sold their stuff out.
They just sold everything.
So over here, what we can see is that the whole thing is full of sludge, which is why probably it's not working. And it's also why we always say, just change your oil. It's the cheapest insurance for longevity for your engine and your components that you're ever going to have. But here's what we want to see now. Come over here and look at this. Inside the car, you got the supercharger button. Isaac, I pressed the button. Yes. Run me through what's actually going on once that button is pressed.
Right, well, in a nutshell, this is an electromagnet. So there's essentially a coil inside here, and when that coil is excited, it then locks up this ring inside of this system and section of the pulley.
And is that a clutch?
Yeah, so essentially these two surfaces are a friction surface. They're able to slip when the electromagnet is not engaged. When it is engaged, it essentially locks this up as one unit and the blower isn't able to turn. So air actually needs to pass through these vanes when they're almost stationary. So you find that the fit of these isn't as tight as what it would be in a screw blower. There's actually air that can pass through without any positive assistance. But this guy is what we're doing with the button. Essentially, add power, clamp you, we have supercharger. Take the switch away, we don't have anything. Yep. It just free spins.
Okay.
So it was making horrible noises doing that yesterday.
And
yes, have a
part of the reason I'm making horrible noises is that has just turned into caramel sauce. So this basically has its own sump, its own oil. This is separate and independent to the system that's in the car.
Correct.
So not like a turbocharger that's running coolant through it and running oil through it. This is its own enclosed system.
Correct.
And has probably never, ever been changed. So what we were going to do was replace a bunch of stuff, but by looking at the bearings, they actually seem to be within tolerance. So the idea instead today is to fully clean this up, give it a birthday, crack these out in some petrol, pump them full of some more grease.
Some high-speed grease we'll use.
And then put it all back together.
With oil.
With proper oil. And then spend a few more hours putting it in. It took 4 hours, 4 bolts. How many bolts were on here?
There was only
those
2.
3 with a massive pain in the arse though,
3 at the bottom here took the longest, but 2 of the bolts in the intake manifold are actually captive behind the supercharger. So I was scratching my head while we're working on the car thinking, there has to be an order of operations here and I just can't see it. Is it the blower comes off first or does the manifold come with the blower? There's no efficient way of removing it. You just had to cut your hands to pieces, use really skinny spanners like these.
And modify tools as well. Actual cut stuff up with the angle grinder just so fingers can get in there.
So I've got a Martin guitar truss rod tool today and I think that's going to help me put things back together because it's the right size. So we're using guitar things for car things. But my point is there's no obvious way where this should have just come out of the engine in one way. So it was probably put on with the motor out of the car or it was potentially just a struggle no matter what. The poor person who installed these on these cars was having a bad day. Okay, good. So we don't have a choice. All these gaskets are all blown out. It's potentially why we're having 0 boost and the thing was running terribly. So we're going to try to replace these, which I believe are a factory part. For this car.
And then gaskets for the rest though, we just DIY, right? Like
I'm going to make
literally just cut them up.
I'm going to sit here with a scalpel and I'm just going to go old school and make them. And I have one trick up my sleeve, which is it's pretty common with later model blowers, is you use like a Loctite brand flange sealer. So essentially it's like a anaerobic cure Loctite, essentially. It even is red like your normal Loctite. And what it does is surfaces that you can't get a gasket to, like between the blower and its housing, it'll actually mate those and seal them correctly without a gasket.
Nice.
Right, so these things I'm making a gasket for where you can see there's obvious gaskets that are needed, even one on the intake manifold if I can't get that. Everything else will be Loctite 515, which is like the hot sauce for this kind of work.
Nice. And while that there is getting a birthday, I'm going to be working on the car. We're going to be doing some plastic welding, some repairs, we're doing some paint, we're painting the wheels. I mean, actually there's so much stuff to do, we should be doing less talking and more fixing cars.
Absolutely.
You're a genius.
Thanks, bro.
And a lovely fellow. It seems that there's a combination of the people that end up around the Mighty Car Mods garage and Super Garage, Mighty Car Mods Super World, and that is people who are very, very clever but also very lovely.
Thanks, bro.
And I think you epitomise that.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate that. You're a legend. Give me a hug.
I
want a hug.
From hug nuts to lug nuts, it's time to remove these wheels so we can repair them and paint them. Now I could replace them, but I don't feel like I owe this car any favours right now, nor do I want to spend any more money. And regardless of what I do, at this point it can't get any worse. This is one of the worst wheel painting jobs I've seen, and I've seen a lot of crappy jobs because I buy a lot of crappy cars. But this one here has been done so quickly and so cheap that even the wheel nuts themselves are black. So if I take this one off, you can see it's black here, but not black there because that bit wasn't as exposed underneath. So you can see there that someone's literally just sprayed it and gone, that'll do. But the car does have brand new tyres on it. I mean, they're rubbish. They're just cheapies, but that's been put on there to sell it. More tech screws here, missing kind of linings over there. I mean, the whole car's a disaster, but that's what we're here for, people. We're going to get it back on the road and hopefully somebody ends up enjoying this car and loving it as much as we don't. And right on time, as I pull the last wheel off, my reinforcements arrive. Thank you so much for coming down.
No worries, mate.
Everyone's Dave from Custom Spray Mods. We have one day to fix this car. Come and have a look. Ooh. Don't worry about the wheels and all that damage yet. Nissan Cube, 7-seater. What are your initial thoughts?
Wow, it is dirty. Look at this thing. Someone's tried to repair it and it's just like runs So yeah, that's got a bit of paint on it.
Headlights need a little bit of urine.
Easy
avocado
fix.
toothpaste.
Yeah.
Overall, there's like, it's not great condition, but I reckon it'll buff up okay. Because this is a special edition Nissan Cube, it comes with a special edition body kit by Impul. The problem is, we can't replace it. So we've got to do what we can with this. Now this, normally, I gather if you saw a normal car with a Corolla, you would just buy another one from a wrecker, right? Like you wouldn't waste your time repairing this. That one damaged all the way there, damaged there, cracked through there, and then this one here all the way down there. How do we fix it?
Yeah, man.
Quickly and cheaply.
A few staples, bit of body filler, maybe some mesh at the back, just make it strong and then bog it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it salvageable?
Yeah, I think it has to be.
It has to be.
Has to be, mate.
I like that. All right, now when it comes to wheels, normally I like black on black, but it looks like someone else has had a go at these wheels already. And I don't think they watched your video on how to paint wheels, and I don't think they watched our video on how to paint wheels, because the paint is just coming straight off. I think it's just one coat. I don't want to spend heaps of time repairing this, but what do you reckon about just like a quick makeover?
Yeah, like buzz it down with a heavy duty, like maybe Scotch wheel and just get as much of that off as quick as can and prime it, paint it.
Okay, cool. And I see, originally I was thinking like black on black, but now I'm thinking more of a bit of a bronze, you know what I mean? Yeah, like a dark,
metallic-y, bronzy colour.
Yeah.
Gloss bronze on black.
Gloss.
Should look pretty good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sweet.
All right, we have today only, like they say in Star Trek, there is no tomorrow. We cut down this side just so we could have a look at the quality of the paint. It actually looks okay under there. And the reason that we wanted to have a look is to see if it was salvageable, because on this side, that looks to me like it was a bird shit.
Yeah.
But that is like all the way through. How do we fix that? Because I reckon when you're sending a car like this back out in the wild, we want to catch and release it. You want the front of it to look good. It's the first thing people are going to see. So I want to kind of put some attention on this. How do we fix that?
So like there's two ways. You can sand it and paint it and then clear the whole bonnet. But that takes time. Yeah. And I mean, there's a quick way to do it and just sand it and clear it. Then once it dries, sand it and buff it.
Okay.
So.
Did you say that's the quick way?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do that.
Sweet.
What about all of these paint runs down here?
Yeah.
Can we attend to that at the same time?
Yeah, just sand and a buff. Just sand that smooth and then machine polish that up.
And so you're just machining off all the dribbles of paint with the expectation that there's enough thickness in the paint underneath to not require more?
Exactly right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you want to start on this? I'll get a stand here and I'll start stitching together the rear bar.
Cool.
The supercharger's getting rebuilt, and hopefully, near the end of the day, we paint the wheels, everything goes back together. Nissan Cube back in the game. The bonnet looks terrible, and we've decided to give it a proper repair and then paint it again so it looks half decent. But the bigger mission right now is seeing if we can stitch this Impul rear bar back together, then repair it and paint it and try and keep it all in one piece.
So many times.
Next time on Mighty Car Mods, we get the supercharger fully rebuilt, ready to go back on the engine. We paint the bonnet and choose the special colour for our wheels. We get the bumpers repaired, and then we can reveal the final car, ready to turn the key and take it for its first drive.